Very good morning, students. Welcome to the another session of irrigation and hydraulic structure. In the previous class, we have discussed about what is a mass inflow curve and what is a demand curve, how a mass inflow curve is prepared with the help of unit hydrograph. In a similar fashion, we have also discussed what is a demand curve and how a demand curve is prepared. And these two curves are prepared like mass inflow curve as well as mass demand curve. So these two curves are prepared based on the data available on unit hydrograph. So whatever the data which is available, we are getting from the unit hydrograph, those data will be collected and it is converted into a mass inflow curve. So whenever we are preparing the mass inflow curve, on the same scale, we have to prepare a demand curve also. So in the picture you can see how the demand curve as well as mass flow curve is prepared. Whatever the curve we are seeing in this direction, right? So this curve is indicating the mass inflow curve. Whereas the bottom one, the triangle is indicating the demand of water, So there is a constant demand of 3,400 hectometers per year. This demand. So with respect to the inflow values of the mass inflow curve as well as with respect to the demand, whether we are meeting the demand or not, that we have to calculate. In a similar fashion, this mass flow curve is also helpful in determining the storage capacity of the reservoir. So now let us quickly have a look at how a mass inflow curve is useful in determining the storage capacity of a reservoir. Okay, now here let us see one more. See, this curve here, in this curve you can see what is the mass inflow curve and how a mass inflow curve is prepared. So in the similar fashion, what is a mass inflow curve means already discussed. It is the accumulation of water in flow. Means there is a difference between unit hydrograph as well as the mass inflow curve. The mass inflow curve is a accumulation of inflow values which are available in the unit hydrograph. So here you can see mass inflow curve and as well as the demand curve. The demand is constant. We need a supply of 3,400 hectometers per year. In similar fashion, here you can see A1, A2, A3. These are the abscesses, which is nothing but they are the maximum highest points of that particular curves, means apex of the curves. So these curves are marked on the curves. Apex A1, A2, A3 are marked, and now after marking these apexes, what we have to do is we need to draw a tangent between the apexes. So tangents are drawn with respect to the demand curve. Whatever the demand curve, which is a constant demand, which is a straight line. So with respect to this constant demand, we need to draw the tangents in each and every curve, meeting the apexes. Okay. Now let us assume we have drawn the curves, horizontal tangents. Tangents are drawn between the apexes. Now after drawing the tangents, what we have to do is we need to draw the vertical intercepts. As you can see, E1 C1 as well as E2 C2, E3 C3, right? So like this we have to draw a what we have to draw? We have to draw the vertical intercepts. So these vertical intercepts are the indicating, they will give the indication of E1 C1 is the demand for that particular year, for that particular specified interval of time. In a similar fashion, E1 C1 is the demand for one period and E2 C2 is the demand for the next interval of time, as well as E3 C3 is the demand for the another period of time. So here again you can see in the vertical intercept, again it is divided into two parts. One is E1 D1, then D1 to C1. So what E1 to D1 is indicating as well as what D1 to C1 is indicating. Whereas E1 to D1 is indicating what is the shortfall of water, means shortfall of rainfall or inflow. Whereas this D1 to C1 is indicating the net inflow available. Means our demand is E1 C1, but the available net inflow is only, what is the amount? That is D1 to C1 only. So in order to meet the requirement of E1 C1, we need excess amount of water, that is D1 to C1. Okay, D1 to C1 is the net inflow value. In a similar fashion, to meet the E1 C1 demand, you need to have E1 as well as D1 as the supply from the storage of the reservoir. So why we are supplying from the storage of reservoir? Because there is a shortfall, because the net inflow is not sufficient to meet the demand. So as there is a shortfall, that shortfall is indicated by E1 D1. So E1 D1 is the amount of water which you have to supply from the storage in the reservoir. Like similarly, you can see it is E1 C1 is the first vertical intercept demand line, as well as the second one is E2 C2 and the third one is E3 C3. So how to calculate, how to determine the storage capacity required for a reservoir? It is the biggest of the ordinate, means shortfalls are there, E1 C1, E2 C2, E3 C3. So out of these three vertical intercepts, whichever is the biggest one, that is considered as your required storage of a reservoir. Now, based on the numerical data available on this particular picture, let us conclude. How we can conclude these things? Let us see now. See, these things are concluded, right? Initially, the base year is 1950, 1957. So from this year, if you see at a particular time, right, in the first abscess A1, at A1, let us assume the reservoir is full. Then after some time, what happens? As the time passes, there is no inflow to the reservoir. Means the curve from A1 to D1, the curve is depleted because there is no supply, no sufficient supply. So the depleted quantity is indicated with 800 hectares per meter, right? In a similar fashion, what is the next one? Again, let us assume the reservoir is full at B1. The reservoir is full at B1. So this B1 is again, what happens? It is full at reservoir and there is an excess flow. After B1, you can see the rise. So that rise indicates it is excess water is available after filling the dam. So what happens whenever there is excess water? What we have to do? We have to release the gates, spillways. So water is spilled from the spillways. So here the vertical line indicates first tangent to second tangent, there is a vertical difference. So that vertical difference is indicating that there is a spill of water. What is that amount of water? It is 800 hectares per meter, hectameters. Okay, so that is. Now let us assume the reservoir is full at A2. After filling the, after full reservoir at B1 and after spilling the water, let us assume the reservoir is full at A2. So again, let us assume there is a depletion of water, water levels are gradually reduced. So this water level is reduced from A2 to D2 as there is no inflow. Means this is the, as this is the maximum ordinate, what we have to conclude, this is the stage D2, it is completely empty. Means from A2 to D2 it is completely empty. The reservoir is empty now, right? Now again there is an inflow to the reservoir after D2. Then again let us assume it is filling at B2. The reservoir is full at B2. Right? Now let us assume from A2 again the water is depleted from A3, the third, after B2 A3. From A3 again the water is depleted. There is a shortfall, no rainfall. So again it is full at the other level. So like this we have to consider. Means if you observe the tangents, what horizontal tangents, that is from A1 to B1 it is on a little bit lower side, whereas A2 to B2 it is on the upper side. So this lower as well as upper tangents, because the tangent should be same, because our demand is same, right? So if the demand is same, what we have to do? Our tangent should be a straight line, but instead of that there is a difference in the successive tangents. So this difference in the successive tangents will give you the information that there is a spill of water. So that amount of water is indicated with 800 hectares. Okay. Now this is what we have discussed in the last class. Again, let us consider it as a revision. Now let us move on to the next topic. Right. So yesterday I told that we are going to discuss what is a reservoir sedimentation. So what is a reservoir sedimentation? We know that there is a reservoir sedimentation is going to happen. Whenever there is a flow of water to the reservoir, heavy flow of water to the reservoir, what happens? The water along with it, it will carry some silt, right? The silt will be deposited, means whatever the sediments which are carried, that will be categorized into different types depending on the size of the particles which are carried through the flow of water into the reservoir. Now depending on that, so this sedimentation formation is depending on so many important factors of the reservoir catchment area. For example, if we see, it depends on what is the nature of the catchment area, what is the nature of the catchment area of the reservoir. In a similar fashion, what is the nature, topography of the catchment area. In a similar fashion, what is the vegetation cover of the catchment area, and also what is the intensity of rainfall. What is the intensity of rainfall? So these are the four important factors which are affecting the sediment deposition in the reservoir. So sediment deposition is a very big problem because it will reduce the storage capacity of a reservoir. It will reduce because whenever the silt is occupying the lower part of the dam, which is considered as dead storage is usually provided for this silt formation only, and that dead storage is not included in the storage capacity of a reservoir. It is excluded exclusively for the silt formation. Okay, so if the dead storage is, the silt is occupied by the dead storage, in the dead storage, right? So if more silt is forming, what happens? The reservoir capacity is gradually reducing, means useful storage or live storage is gradually going to decrease. Okay. Now, what is the catchment area? How the catchment area is affecting the sediment deposition? For example, if we take what is the nature of the catchment area, let us assume it is soft soil. The nature of the catchment area is having a soft soil. Right? What happens whenever there is a heavy flows into the reservoir catchment area? What happens? The heavy flow will erode the complete top surface of the soft soil. Means there always be a possibility of sheet erosion whenever there is a soft soil is available in the catchment area. Sheet erosion may be possible. Suppose, if for example, whenever there is a hard strata, hard soil is existing on the catchment area, what happens? This hard soil will resist the sediment formation. Means sediment is gradually reduced if the surface is little bit hard. Okay. So nature of the soil is also an important factor in the sediment deposition of a reservoir. Right. Now, what is the second factor? Topography of the reservoir catchment area. Means let us assume there are few portions which are having a steep slopes. Steep slope is there in the reservoir catchment area. What happens whenever there is a steep slope? Whenever heavy flow comes, what happens? Along with the steep slopes, the erosion is maximum because the friction will be more, runoff will be more. So because of the runoff, what happens? It will the toppermost soil will be completely eroded because of the steep slope. Okay. So that is also one of the important factor in considering the reservoir sedimentation deposition. Topography is also very important point. In a similar fashion, what is the vegetation cover? Suppose let us assume the catchment area is having sufficient vegetation cover. What happens? It will give you the more runoff, and at the same time there will be a great reduction in the silt carrying. Means erosion will be less due to sufficient vegetation cover, and if the erosion is less, what happens? Ultimately the silt deposition is also very less. So having sufficient vegetation cover in the catchment area is also very, very essential, because it greatly affects the silt deposition. It will gradually, silt deposition is gradually reduces whenever there is a sufficient cover, vegetation cover is provided. In a similar fashion, what is the next point, last point? Intensity of rainfall. What is the intensity of rainfall? The intensity of rainfall is very, very important, because whenever there is a heavy floods, ultimately the erosion will be more. If the erosion is more, what happens? The silt deposition or sedimentation carried to the reservoir will also increase. Okay, so these are the four important factors which are highly influencing the sediment deposition in a reservoir. Okay, now let us have a pictorial view how this water is flowing and how the sediment deposition is going to occur. Let us see. So these points are already discussed: steep slope, nature of the soil cover, as well as heavy intensity of rainfall. Now moving on to the next slide. See this picture, you can see whatever the picture is there, that is representing a dam, right? So here you can observe two different things. One is the sediment deposition is, right, it is two types. One is the finer particles, finer sediment deposition is suspended in the air itself, whereas the coarser deposits will be on the bed of the reservoir, right? So here two types of depositions are there. One is fine sediment deposition. So because of its fineness, it is suspended in the water itself, whereas the bed load deposition means coarse deposition. That coarse deposition will be carried along the bed of the reservoir, because of the heaviness of the particles, what happens? They will be dragged on the bed of the reservoir. They will be dragged on the bed of the reservoir. Okay. Now, what is a suspended load? What is a bed load? We know that silt silt is having some amount of load. So the silt deposition or else sediment deposition is considered as divided into two heads. One is suspended head or suspended load. The second one is bed load or bed deposition, bed load. So this suspended load will be more comparatively the bed load. Bed load is naturally very, very less. It is only 10 to 15% of the suspended load. Okay. So this suspended load, what happens? To measure how much load is acting, there is no actual procedure. There is no criteria for estimation of this silt load or deposition load. So generally it is estimated, if you take an example of suspended load, at various depths the samples are collected, and these collected samples are dried, and whatever the deposition is there, that will be dried and it will be calculated. This much will be the load is acting on the as a suspended load on the reservoir. In the similar fashion, the bed load we cannot calculate it. There is no such criteria to calculate, but generally it is estimated as 10% or 10 to 15% of the suspended load. It is generally considered as 10 to 15% of the suspended load. The deposited load is acting. In the similar fashion, right, you can see in the upper part of the picture near the dam site, near the dam, what happens? You can see a relatively clear amount of water. Means as there is no, because whatever the debris or particles are there, they are settled down. So relatively you will find a clear water near the dam. And if you see at the longer side of away from the dam, the suspended particles as well as bed deposition is there. So in a dam we can see there are two types of water with different densities. Relatively clear water with one density, and relatively turbid water means which is carrying some amount of loads, suspended load with some floating particles. So it is having another what we call density. So because of this difference in the densities, relatively smaller densities, but the gravity of fluid, flowing of a gravitational flow of one fluid with respect to the another fluid. Means one fluid is flowing in the other fluid because there are no, what we call, there is a small difference in the densities. Both are fluids, but one is a turbid fluid, the second one is a clear fluid. But relatively, comparatively, they are having the same densities, equal densities. So, this flow of gravity flow of one fluid in the another fluid is considered as density current. Density current. So, what happens with respect to this density current? What happens whenever these density currents are forming in the reservoir? What happens? Usually, these will be carried away from the sluice space. Right? So, if sufficient transportation of this sediment turbid flow is occurring in the maintained in the reservoir, then what happens? This particular density currents can be maintained. Okay, so that is about density currents. Flowing of one fluid, gravitational flow of one fluid in the another fluid is considered as your density current. So that is about how the sedimentary deposition is occurring in the reservoir. Right, this is a pictorial view. Here you can see coarser sedimentation deposition, and the finer one is suspended in the reservoir water itself. Okay, now let us move on to the next slide. Right, here you can see already we have discussed the bed load is acting on the reservoir as well as suspended load is also acting. Suspended load can be calculated by taking samples at different depths, which is comparatively this bed load is very small. Bed load is small. It is only occupying 10 to 15% of the suspended load. So suspended load can be measured somehow, but bed load cannot be measured. There is no such criteria. Right? Moving on to the next slide. Now here, one more important factor is calculating the life of a reservoir. How a life of a reservoir is calculated. How it is calculated. On what factors the life of a reservoir is dependent. Right? See, here you can see. See what happens. We have already discussed that there is a sediment deposition. For sediment deposition, a separate storage is given, which is considered as bed storage. Means the ultimate capacity of a dam is including the sedimentary deposition. Right? The overall or maximum ultimate capacity of the reservoir is completely, which is including the sedimentary deposition. Right? So this sediment deposition we have given a separate storage which is called as dead storage. So if more silt is forming, what happens? It will reduce the capacity of a reservoir. More silt formation will lead to the reduction in the storage capacity of a reservoir. So what happens? Generally, the storage capacity means the life of a reservoir is terminated whenever the capacity is reduced to 20% of the design capacity. Let us assume the design capacity is somehow 80%, excluding the dead storage. So what happens if that capacity of a reservoir is reduced to 20%? Then what happens? The life of a reservoir is terminated. Okay. Now that is one point. The next thing is, while planning a reservoir, we have to include a separate consideration for rate of silting. How much probable silting is going to occur in the reservoir? That particular consideration should be there in the planning level itself, which is very essential for the calculating the life of a reservoir, because life will be completely dependent on storage of the reservoir. If more silt is forming in the reservoir, considerably what happens? The storage will be decreased. If the storage is reduced to 20% of the design capacity, the life will be gone. Means that is, there is no life for the reservoir, because we cannot remove such amount of silt deposition. It is highly impossible. Okay, so by maintaining good silt levels, by maintaining good operating conditions, and whenever there is a silt flow, then that will be passed from the sluice phase. That is one more option is available. Okay, now let us see how life of a reservoir is estimated. See, life of a reservoir is calculated based on the trap efficiency. It is calculated as a percentage of trap efficiency. Trap efficiency is again a function of inflow and capacity. What is the capacity of the reservoir and what is the inflow of a sediment deposition? Means so much of sediment is coming to the reservoir, but whatever the amount which is stored, which is deposited in the reservoir, that inflow to the capacity of the reservoir. So this trap efficiency will completely dependent on two factors. One is inflow of sedimentation for a particular given flow rate, and what is the capacity of the reservoir, right? Now moving on to next slide. See here, this figure you can observe, this graph you can observe. This graph is indicating that how a sediment deposition is related with respect to inflow rate of a reservoir as well as trap efficiency. If you see, the sediment deposition is decreasing. The sediment deposition is decreasing, means trap efficiency is decreasing with respect to inflow rate. For a given inflow rate, the sediment means trap efficiency is decreasing with reduction in the reservoir capacity. Obviously, if the reservoir capacity is reduced, what happens? The trap efficiency will also simultaneously is going to be decreased. How reservoir capacity will be reduced? Because if the silt formation is more, already sufficient amount of silt is formed in the reservoir. So because of the silt formation, the capacity of the reservoir is reduced. If the capacity of the reservoir is reduced, what happens? Trap efficiency will be reduced. See what happens generally when a reservoir or a dam is constructed newly, then what happens at the initial stages, the trap efficiency is more, the silt formation is more. So as and when the time passes, what happens? The trap efficiency will be decreasing for a given flow rate, right? So that is that condition you need to understand here. So this is indicating that trap efficiency is decreasing with decrease in the storage capacity of a reservoir for the deposition of silt for a given particular inflow rate. Now, moving on to the next slide. Now, in the initial stage of the reservoir, what happens? We can observe highest silt formation. Silt formation is more. Later on, what happens? The silt will be definitely is going to be formed. So later on, what happens? The trap efficiency will be decreased for a particular inflow, right? For example, if we take an example, a small reservoir is constructed on a large stream. A small reservoir is constructed on a large stream. So what happens? The capacity, it is having a, what happens? Inflow rate to the trap efficiency is completely, it is small. So as this ratio means whatever the trap efficiency is there, that trap efficiency will be reduced because we are constructing on a large river, we are constructing a small dam. So what happens? There will not be flow will not be stopped. It will be continuously flowing through the streams. So obviously the trap efficiency will be reduced. In contrast, a large reservoir is constructed on a small stream which is having a greater inflow to capacity ratio. And in that particular situation, what we can see, the trap efficiency is also going to be increased. So for such a reservoir, many retain water for several years and permit almost complete deposition of the sediment. Okay. Now we have to think whether we are constructing a small reservoir and a large stream or in the contrast. So there you need to understand where the trap efficiency is more. Right. Coming next class, we will again continue the same topic. What is the procedure for calculating the calculation of a life of a reservoir. Till then,